Okay, ladies, and we are live. Yes. So let me check out our Facebook profile to see how many persons are joining us or how many persons are looking or viewing at the moment before we go into our discussion. Okay, so yes. So far we have one person tuned in. We will wait to build an audience. At least 5 persons, 2, 3, 4, 5 persons before we get started with our discussion. Okay, so good afternoon, ladies, and welcome to Live with ChildLinK or ChildLinK TalK. Today we will be discussing adolescent and at-risk youth. Remember that this program comes to you under our Recovery Safeguarding Reintegration Initiative, which is funded by the delegation of the European Union to Guyana. And today we will be discussing once more adolescents and at-risk youth. I have 4 beautiful women with me, ranging in ages that are here to share their expertise, to share their knowledge, and to share their experience, even, as an adolescent. Okay, so without further ado, I'll begin with Miss Parvati. I'll ask you to please introduce yourself. You're muted, Miss Parvati. It's okay.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm Parvati Ranglal. I am currently working as school and family counselor with ChildLinK.
Ms. Barrow?
Good afternoon, viewers. My name is Yvonne Barrow. I'm a youth advocate, a feminist, and a SRHR storyteller. I use storytelling to implement activities for the at-risk population and empower young people.
Okay. Ms. Mendoza.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Danetta Mendoza, and I'm a counselor at ChildLinK organization. Also, I'm doing sensitization and mentoring.
Thank you. And last but not least, the youngest member on our panel, one of our youth advocate mentors. Can you introduce yourself to us, Ms. Cameron?
My name is Cameron, and I'm one of ChildLinK's youth advocate mentors.
Are you guys hearing? Can you project a little more, Tanesia? We're not hearing you clear there.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tanesia Cameron, and I am one of ChildLinK's youth advocate mentors.
Okay, so thank you for that, and welcome you ladies once more to this program. I look forward to having this discussion with you. Okay, so like I mentioned earlier, today we will be discussing adolescents and at-risk youths for the persons who are now tuning in. I know someone listening to this must ask the question, what is an at-risk youth? So I'm going to ask Ms. Barrows to just define for us, who is an at-risk youth?
So I would consider an at-risk youth to be any individual that faces challenges or is exposed to the consequences of their environment, society, or family conditions. And this may infringe on that individual being integrated into society and could also infringe on the personal development of that child.
Okay. Ms. Mendoza?
Okay, so generally speaking, any child is at risk once there is a parental neglect or caregivers not doing what it is supposed to do in terms of care and showing support. And so going forward, and at-risk youth for me can be defined as young people whose background or present circumstances place them at risk of, let's say, leaving school prematurely, let's say substance abuse, having unprotected sex, things like that. I don't want to go too much to go further in the discussion, so let me save that for later. But just to name a few, those things that would even put them at risk, teenage pregnancy and so on. So in a nutshell, that's it for me for at-risk youths.
Okay, Ms. Parvati, would you like to add anything?
Yes, I would certainly like to add an at-risk youth for me is one who will not be able to live a happy and successful life because of their situation that would have impacted their lives earlier. So the challenge is there. They may not be able to lead a happy or successful life in the future.
Okay. At this time, Tanesia, would you like to add anything to, as a young woman, to what the other members on the panel are saying?
I don't think I have anything to say because they've already directed everything that I can say.
Okay. Thank you for that. And let me say that we have on our panel today, we are privileged to have some women who are passionate about young people, who work as advocates for young people. We have social workers, counselors, and even a young woman herself who is here to share with you. So I would advise you to share this live, call a friend, tell a friend that we are live and we're talking about adolescents and at-risk youth. And a lot of times we hear people using the term adolescent, or he or she's going through adolescence, man, they're gonna pass the phase just now. So I would just like to define for you that term. It is used to describe a person who is going through the process of developing from a child into an adulthood, and usually start from the age of 12 and last until someone is 24 years old. So Danette, I just came out of adolescence. Right? So yes. So
I'm not surprised because some research take it as far as age 25.
But you see, okay, so I'm still fairly young. Okay, so we want to ask something that all of you mentioned is the fact that an at-risk youth is a child or a young person who is at risk of basically not being able to develop to their full potential, who have different things that are against them: dysfunctional family, persons who are abusing substance, persons who are promiscuous, and all of these things. So what are some of the factors that places these youths at risk of becoming institutionalized or being placed in institutional care? And when I say institutionalized, I'm speaking about both in juvie or NOC or in conflict with the law, or being placed into a home, orphanage, formal care. Yeah. Anyone can go at this point.
And so for me, some of the factors, I will just mention a few because it's a no panel. Some of the factors for me would be abuse. And so abuse is something very serious, be it physical, verbal, sexual, psychological. It is very serious. And so those factors can put a youth at risk of being institutionalized. Because let's say, for instance, in a case of sexual abuse, if the perpetrator is in that home, that child will have to be removed from that home if there's no other family member who could provide care and safety for that child. That child will have to be removed from that home and placed into institutional care. Yeah. Also, there is the issue of poverty because of low income, where one parent may be just receiving a very low income. That parent may not have enough financial resources to provide for that child. And so what you would find is sometimes that child will go to school hungry, which would put them at risk because they could end up probably begging or asking the wrong person for a meal, who will have their own personal agenda. And so they would take it upon themselves to, for whatever reason, abuse that child. And so going forward, abuse, that's one of the factors. I would have also mentioned neglect. Also, there are many other factors that I don't want to be selfish in saying right now, I want to leave it for the panel, but abuse is very important. And so that can place a child at risk and at the same time cause them to be institutionalized. Because it has lasting effects on not just the child, but even the family and by extension, the environment.
Yes, Ms. Barros?
In addition to what Ms. Mendonça said, when she mentioned poverty, the socioeconomic situation within Guyana and our families, it is beyond what we can do on Zoom and Facebook, and it's more of a systems and human rights approach that is needed. But when we speak about poverty, we must understand that a child in a low-income family is at risk for violent behavior. So if a child is hungry, as Ms. Mendonça said, in some cases, what occurs, that child may be involved in a friends or peer pressure that may extend to them displaying physical violence that can lead to incarceration, for instance, the NOC or the Sophia Detention Center, and the child can be in that center for over extended period of time as they're waiting trial and the results. Say, for instance, the altercation of physical violence occurred and someone has been severely beaten or even died. So now a child is in the children's court for manslaughter or possibly rape. So what can happen to that child? A child not only moves from NOC or the detention center, but there are cases whereby a child may also be placed in Camp Street or Lusignan prison. So when we speak about the socioeconomic factors within our society, we must understand how it's related to crime and violence. And when we speak about parents, we must understand that the neglect that children experience comes from the home. So the poor parenting skills, or should I say the lack of parenting skills of some families within our society, it puts those children at risk because we have a society with blended families, family types that vary, whether it be sibling, single parents, extended families. That child has been exposed and is even more exposed to different forms of not only individuals, but of crimes. And she mentioned sexual abuses, also substance abuse. So what can occur in a situation like that? The child now is exposed to take care of themselves if in the absence of the parent, especially a single parent household, and the socioeconomic factor is beyond the parent's control, so they have to go to work. For instance, a guard working night shift. So that child is now vulnerable to a perpetrator of sexual violence, of crime. They may invite friends over thinking it's safety and they want company, and an altercation of physical violence can occur, gang rape can occur in the same house. But then we need to understand that the responsibility sometimes not only of the parents, but the caregivers within the community, because it does take a village to raise a child. So we have neighbors that may see these things occurring, and they might have other parents that see these things occurring. But we have an attitude in Guyana whereby we say that if it's not occurring to us, it is not our business. So what we need to understand is at-risk youth is everyone's business. A child is everyone's business, and it is our role to look out for them and intervene when we can. So there are more factors, but I will allow my colleagues to enlighten you on some of these.
Okay, Ms. Parvati.
Yes, I want to touch a little on the psychological factors.
Yeah.
And I'm going to highlight a few. At-risk youths are not born, they are made. And some of them are being made by the very people who bring them into the world. It's a fact.
Yes.
Now, I want to say that if bonding is taken place, every child that comes into this world wants to make sure that he's or she's being loved unconditionally. And so that strong bonding has to take place. So the child can trust this world as a reliable place. Love unconditionally is a major, major factor to raise a child. Maybe in a poverty situation, maybe in a single parent family, whatever the home circumstances may be. If a child feels that love and feels that and continue to get that validation from the parents or those who are around. Maybe parents are not around, but grandparents are around, or extended family members are around. Children look forward for that unconditional love and the validation. When a child is born and that child feels rejected, that child grows with that anger. And when that child is ready to venture out into the world, the child looks into all the negative places to get that validation and love. And so that is one of the real driving force for youths to become at-risk youths. Some of us make them to become at-risk youths.
Yeah. Well, like you rightfully said, that every child is born into the world, wanting to know that they belong and that they're unconditionally loved. And, adolescence is that phase where the child transitions, the boy or girl transitions from a child into an adult. And that is the shaping phase. Early childhood experiences and these things matter, but, that is the shaping phase in a child's life. And that is where they're finding identity, they're finding their responsibility, they're wanting to be accepted and want to know that they belong. So from a young person's perspective, and today I'm going to ask you this, as an adolescent, in your opinion, and through your experience, what are some of the challenges that young people face in this phase?
Some of the challenges adolescents would face would be towards academic success and job readiness. When it comes to school, it's very hard as you go up into the different grades, the works get very harder, and it's very hard to balance that if you have to be in a school and then at home you have to be doing all sorts of things too. It's very hard to balance those things. And then with the job readiness, that has to come in with academics too, to know that you have to have these certain subjects or so. And with your home life where you are being punished or anything to do all the work or so, that actually, puts into this where there's a disadvantage towards it. And our will to be financially independent, like if we want something, we don't always have to go and ask our parents. We would want our own money. So thank you.
Yeah, I feel what you're saying, because I can vividly remember as a young woman, going to school, and I would use my lunch money to do assignments. And it's not because my mother said, well, you got to use your lunch money. It's because I wanted to be financially independent in some way. I wanted to show that I can do this. I am capable of doing this, and I can make this sacrifice. And also, like Tanesia rightfully mentioned, sometimes a child has to deal with their academic studies. Then you go home to a dysfunctional family or parents who neglect you, and you have to look after your younger siblings. So these are reality. I see you're unmuted, Danetta. Would you like to add something?
Oh, another challenge for me that I would have experienced due to working with at-risk youth is the lack of parental support. And so you would have a lot of teens, a lot of youths who are at risk are not being supported by their parents. And it's not that these children don't want this support. They may not know how to come and say, mommy or daddy, I need this, or I need you to do this for me. And that comes back to communication. This is why communication needs to be something that is healthy between you and your child. Your child must be able to come and say, mommy or daddy, this is what I need from you. And so the conversation needs to start even by doing the simplest of things, if it's just when you're in the kitchen and you're cooking. And I'm not talking about the young girl only. When it comes to cooking, I'm also talking about the young men. So parents, even when you're in the kitchen and you cooking with your boys and your girl children, it's important that conversation starts from there. This is where the bonding starts. And so your child now will be able to say, you know what, I can come to mommy or daddy for this support. They're able to give me this. If not, they're not able to give me this at a particular time, somewhere down the line, you know what, I will be able to say, I didn't able to give you this now, but this is what I can afford, or this is what I can do. Or even though the parents may not have that particular support that child may be needing at this time, they can direct that child to resource personnel who will be able to give them that support that is needed, because our children need our support, they need our love, and they need our attention. The second one is that the challenge that they would face is also is the low self-confidence and self-belief. And so that is one of the challenges I have to work with or endure with while working with these at-risk youths, because there is an issue whereby they don't believe in self because the parents or the caregivers will have already write them off. And so it is not a time for you to write off your children. It's important that you see your children as assets and not as liability, because they're here because we made the choice to have them. And so it's important that we be the one to guide them, give them the correct tools and the resources that these children need.
Yeah. Yes, Ms. Barrows.
So I would really like to expound on what my colleagues previously said, especially when Ms. Mendonza mentioned that at risk also involves cooking in the kitchen and the challenge it being boys and girls. I'm glad she said that, because both boys and girls are at risk. So we need to understand this is not just a boy thing or a boy being a juvenile, but it also involves females. However, the challenges I wanted to mention are mental health, just as she said, because mental health not only speaks to the aspect of self-esteem, but I work with boys, and I'm telling you, the trouble we have with anger management and conflict management is severe amongst our young people and even adults. And we take that same attitude into our families, into our work, and in our circles. So they struggle not only with anger management, but they have mental illnesses that those young people at risk have to overcome. By the time you tell them something, I can remember one boy saying, "Miss, I'm waiting for Stabby, I'm waiting for Stabby." And I'm right there and I'm trying to explain to him, you need to calm down, process it first. Is it worth you stabbing him? These are your alternatives if you stab him. Or a fight may ensue. For what reason? Sometimes they're fighting over food or an argument. And that's why we need to communicate and understand the things that trigger other people and the things that trigger you as well. Because the mental illness of our young people, it is just as important before it escalates to something like Alzheimer's or dementia. Because Ms. Mendonza mentioned the self-esteem, and we need to realize that the stigma of some of those vulnerable communities and the at-risk population, it can really have an impact on our young people. So they might know you come from this particular community and they already intend to treat you a specific way, or you might have less attention because you come from that community, or they expect you to be a failure. So now this is an opportunity for you to realize not where I came from, but who I can become, and also to utilize those opportunities that are available and to seek more of those opportunities, because the stigma of some vulnerable communities and those children are at risk or may look different or sound different, we tend to discriminate against them. So that's a barrier that we really need to break. And when Ms. Tenesio mentioned the academic that young people face the challenge, we also need to acknowledge it goes bigger than academics. Is the academic program, is the activities, is what the school provides for the children. So we're speaking about the quality of education. So it brings us back to those specific communities and some school programs and some schools in particular. We can say a school located in A, would they have an IT lab? Would they have an INT lab? And programs after school to help encourage children, a remedial program to engage them to deal with these challenges? Do they have guidance and counseling service in the school for those children when they are extremely overwhelmed? How can they cope with it? We want young people to be more involved now in the STEM subjects, but does the school have the STEM facilities for those young people? What systems are we putting in place? These are challenges that schools located in at-risk communities may face. These are challenges that young people may face, especially if all young people don't have access to Zoom or internet daily, and they are depending on the use of Wi-Fi moving from place to place. We still expect children now in COVID-19 to function at their best in hope that they get internet connection from somewhere. And we need to consider Guyana is so diverse, terrain is so different. So the children are at risk for so many different things, but I will allow Ms. Parvati to expand a little bit more.
Yes.
Thank you, dear. I would like to say, when we come into contact with at-risk youths, both boys and girls, they are already messed up in mind. Some of them are messed up in mind and body. Because I, a school counselor, when I come into contact with a youth, and I would try my best to establish connection. Unless I connect, I will not be able to help that youth. And I'm saying this again, love and trust has to be built. And when we see that youth, he or she might be neatly dressed and everything and nice and well spoken. Our duty as school counselors is to get beneath that nice appearance. After we would have connected and we get under that nice looking appearance, it is horrible. So we should be able to work in such a way as to be able to retract what is happening in the home environment, retracting what is going to cause this youth to become at risk, find out what is actually really bothering this youth so that the youth can receive help. So in that area of work, connection is very, very important. And background knowledge of where this child actually came from and what is happening in his or her world. And most of all, to find out whether this child is being validated by the people around him or her. It matters. Children scream out for attention, and in their own environment, their homes, because of whatever else is going on, they are not being noticed. They cry, they scream for help, and when they don't get it there, they look outside of the home.
Yes,
so
yes.
This whole thing about at-risk youths can be arrested very early. What we have to do is get parents to do their God-given duty.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm so happy that you mentioned children crying out, because I can vividly remember once reading that I was listening to a TED Talk one time from this guy. I can't remember his name, that work with children who are at risk, young people and men of course, in the United States. And he said in his talk, he said, it takes a village to raise a child, but if that child does not feel accepted and a part of, he or she will burn that village to feel its warmth. Now, I feel like there were a few points that Ms. Barrows mentioned where she spoke about anger management, especially in at-risk communities. Growing up in an at-risk community, something that you can hear almost 3, 4 to 5 days in a week is violence. Even if it's not in your home, somebody is cursing out somebody or someone is fighting. And these are all things that mold our young people when they're identifying, when they're in the adolescent stage, when they're trying to find their role and who they are. And they say, you know what? I have to identify with a certain particular kind of person. I have to be tough. I have to be aggressive in order to make it out of this community alive. So that is some of the thinking, and I'm so happy that Ms. Barrows mentioned at-risk community, because I feel like for some reason, correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Barrows, you can come in here. When a child or a young person lives in an at-risk community, from the time that child is born or from the time that child begins to grow, he or she is placed at risk because of how they're socialized. Would you like to add anything on that?
That is correct. That was the perception I was trying to give. Not only how they're socialized, but the stigma attached to that community. Because vulnerable communities, they have less investors because they feel the crime rate is so high. They have less programs because people are fearful, or they feel like they can only do so much to help the community. Like everyone is bad and they're bound to be bad eventually, But there are people that come out from that community that are exceptionally well. There are testimonies that are told, and we need to pay attention to those testimonies. There are activities and ongoing programs in many of those communities that we need to acknowledge and support. But what may happen, there with the little good that there is, there might be some bad, and people try to just put all in one basket and generalize the entire community or the entire household as though they're all bad. But what we need to also realize is that if a child has been accused of being involved in some sort of violent behavior, and we are assessing that that child may be struggling with anger management or conflict management, or that child has mental health issues like depression, we need to assess all the children within that home or within the neighboring houses, because those are more or less likely the people who the child may hang with, or who they may have the play dates with, as we may want to say, who they socialize with. But the way we deal with anger and our behavior, the stereotypes of boys and girls is so different. So a lot of boys may feel that they need to express themselves that way within that community, because not only is it a norm of the community, but it is an expectation of boys, because boys are tough, boys do not cry, and they do not participate in certain games. So it is a middle class value that is now expanded to beyond a community. So now there are other youths that are not specifically from that community that have similar behaviors. And that's when we need to consider the stereotype within the village, within our society, and how we can help to shape and prevent it from escalating to the state of a child going to an institution.
Okay, thank you for that. And something else that I'd like to,
if I may, picking up on what Ms. Barrett says, she's so correct when she talks about the environment. I could remember working with a particular youth, and he's always angry, and so when we would have our sessions, I would ask him, why is it you hungry? Why is it you're doing such and such and such? And his words to me was, it's not me, it's my environment. Where I come from, I have to defend me. If I do not defend me, and you know the different names that they would call, but he said, because of the environment I'm from, I have to defend me and I have to defend my honor. You know the different terminologies that they would use. So the environment has a lot to do with how these children, how they behave at times.
Yeah. I think it's also important that these children are loved, because I feel like we all go through a phase where we're a bit confused and we don't know how to act, and we don't always know how to deal or internalize with what we're faced with. For example, separation is one of the factors. When our parents become divorced and we're only 13, 14, we're trying to find ourselves. How do we deal with that? What if our parents don't sit and have the conversation? Netta, I know you can come in here because you work with a lot of young people. What do we do? How do we deal with that if our parents, do not sit and say, when mommy and daddy are separated, then 2 mornings, daddy move out, you see, you get a stepfather, and then daddy bring a girl and call you a stepmother, and you have to deal with all of those changes while dealing with yourself. How does a child handle? Can you talk a bit about that?
To be honest, that was one of the points I had to mention, but I leave it to the panel, and so I didn't mention. So I'm very glad that you bring it up. Separation is very important. It really affects the children. And what you would have said in terms of when parents do decide to get divorced, they do not bring these children and talk to them. And so the child who would have accustomed to seeing mommy and daddy together, mommy and daddy doing this, no longer sees that. They probably wake up one morning and realize that daddy is gone or mommy is gone. And so nobody is saying, okay, you know what? Shaquita, mommy and daddy is going through this particular issue, and we will be separated at such a time. However, we love you guys, and this is what we will do for you. We will be standing by you. I would have had a case, and of many, I'm just going to talk about one. This particular case, this child wake up one morning and realize that the mother and father is not together. And so she was like, they didn't tell me anything. They didn't say, well, okay, why daddy leave? All I know is that daddy leave. And so the child was hurting, and as a result, that child act out. Today, this child is at risk. This child is on my case load. There's not 1 session, 2 or 3 sessions I would have done with this child. Presently, I'm carrying this child with me because it reached to the stage whereby the father is incarcerated. And so she misses her dad. One time she would have said, you know what? Why did daddy did so and so to that person, knowing that it's a criminal act? Why did he do that? And even though she knows what he did was wrong, she still misses him. And so she's living in a home whereby our parents were separated first, and now she has to deal with the fact that her father is incarcerated. And as a result, that child is at risk of becoming pregnant, of contracting, a STD or STI. There's a lot of things that this child is at risk of. And so it's important that when parents or caregivers decide to go down this road or to take this path, it's important that that child be involved in this conversation. Gone are the days when they say you don't ask mommy this question or you don't ask daddy this question. It is important that we have our children a part of certain conversation. They need to know, why is it I'm not going to see daddy anymore? Why is it I'm not seeing mommy anymore? It is important that they be aware of what is happening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I was doing some reading and whatnot, and I read that sometimes, last night I was doing some reading rather before the program, and I read that sometimes delinquency is a coping mechanism, because the child don't understand and don't know how to handle all that he or she is feeling, or don't even have the platform in the home where he or she can say, when mommy and daddy, you guys are separated, I'm hurting, or I see you guys calling each other names and verbally abusing each other, I'm hurting. You can't speak to them because what they say. Well, what do they say in our culture? They say, this will big people quarter bottle and large bottles don't mix, and you can't talk to me. You got to listen to me when I'm speaking. Yes, tell to make people business. This ain't got nothing to do with you. She wouldn't understand. Those are some of the things that, parents say ruling out children. When you say your child don't understand, is ruling out his or her feeling, or ruling out the fact that he or she is a human being just like you are. And I would often say to parents, or sometimes I would say to my mother, I'm 25 years old, but sometimes mommy would still yell at me. So when she yelled at me, I would say, I would ask her, like, how did this make you feel when granny yelled at you? To consider the way I feel too. You understand? Well, you won't be disrespectful, but you try to speak to your mother or your father in a way that's respectful. And you say, man, mommy or daddy, I understand that you're angry, you're upset, because sometimes our parents are it is the role of the parent to take care of the child, to safeguard them, to protect them. But sometimes when you're at a certain age as a young person, a young man or a young woman, or even a child, you have to, you don't have to, but there are some children who will take up the initiative to approach the parents. And that's a good thing, and parents should not rule that out. Danetta, I see you're unmuted. Would you like to say?
Sadly, we are still in the age, I really don't want to say it, but we're in the age whereby some of these things are still happening, where children are living in home with parents and they don't have a say. And it's important that our children have a voice. I could remember when growing up as a young child, and a child of the 80s, not so far back, I could remember that one day my father came home and somebody complained to him about something. And he didn't ask any question. He went off on me. And I don't know where I got this courage from, but he wasn't allowing me to speak. I don't know where I got this courage from, but that day I stand up, I said, Daddy, you're not allowing me to say anything. And I could remember a conversation includes two persons. And if I cannot have a say in this particular conversation, I'm not listening, girl. I don't know where those words came from, but it came out. Do you know, then at that time, my father breaks up, and I don't know if it dawned upon him that he wasn't allowing me to say something, but he stopped and he allowed me to say what was the reason or what happened in that particular incident. And when he listened to me, he regretted in terms of, okay, that person complained on you, but that wasn't the issue. I should have listened to you. And so it's important that parents allow their children to have a voice. Gone are the days when you're saying that you don't have a voice, you're not bringing in any meal, you're not paying any bill. Come on, it's important that we allow our children to have a voice. They need to know that, you know what, I'm being heard. Somebody is listening to me.
I know, Tanisha, I want to bring you in a bit here. I know that as a young woman, you have an amazing mother who I've worked with, and she's very aware of, child rights, the roles and responsibility of children and even of parents. How does it feel as a young woman? And I really want to ask you this question to give our viewers perspective from a young person. How does it feel as a young woman to voice your opinion, to voice your concerns, of course, if you're given a chance to?
That is sometimes tough because sometimes I would feel that I don't have the option to speak out because they don't want to listen to me. Like if I say something, automatically they think that I'm wrong. But like sometimes I don't, like I just stay in my corner and don't say anything.
So what about those times that you actually get the chance to speak? How does that make you feel?
You know that I actually get to say something. I feel very proud of myself that you're going to actually listen to me.
Okay, thank you for that. And I think when parents open up create a platform where you can speak to your children can speak to you, it makes them feel like they're a part of the family and not necessarily a product of the family. Like, oh, I happened. But rather they feel like I'm wanted. They wanted me. Now they're giving me a chance to voice my concerns and my opinion. However, we've been dwelling on that question for a very long time because, there's so much to bring out. And it is so important that we understand the challenges that at-risk youths, are facing. So the Nets would have mentioned working with children. Ms. Parvati mentioned working with children. Even Ms. Barrow mentioned working with children. So I'm going to start with you, Ms. Barrow. How have your organization, what are some of the things that you've been doing? What are some of the work that you've been doing to support children who are youths who are at risk?
So firstly, I am the co-founder of Protect Your Peace. It is a pre-charge diversion program for juveniles, male juveniles particularly. And one of the things we have been doing is providing social and vocational activities for those adolescent boys. We would visit the center at least once for a week, trying to enhance their psychosocial, their mental health. We have even collaborated with ChildLinK themselves, as Ms. Mendonca would know. She has visited the center with us where we will host several sessions and activities for the boys so that they can be open so we can better understand the challenges that led to their incarceration or their detention at the time. And we have collaborated with institutions such as, again, Football Federation, whereby we have helped to manage their anger through sports because they really enjoy sports, and we engage the youth and we give them a chance to talk about the things that interest them. And sports was definitely one of them. Not only because they were boys, because it's something they grew up with in their communities and they excelled at it. One of the boys, he played football so well that we thought he was a professional. He was very versed, he had the skills, the coach had little coaching to do. And I'm telling you, it was amazing that you would not believe that, one mistake or a poor choice at the moment led to them being on trial for things like murder or manslaughter, because the boys have a lot of potential. And every visit there is enlightening, it's encouraging, it fills you with hope, because two of the boys even wrote CXC last year and got grades 1 and grade 2. So that just only goes to show that if they're right in the center and they're excelling, imagine what could have happened if they had more support outside of the center. And in addition to that, I've even worked with young girls along the coast of Demerara, implementing a program called the Perushi Club that mentored them at Buxton. And I've seen within 3 months, those girls have grown, they're more open, they're empowered. It's because their challenges being in a stigmatized community such as Buxton. People expect them to be another teenage mother or expect all of them to have several relationships. And one of the things I implemented was to have inspirational talks at every session from one Buxtonian to another, so that another young woman can say, I am from this village too, and I have achieved this. So it's really not where you come from, but how you utilize some of the tools that are presented to you and how you can overcome and not fall to the norm. So working with both boys and girls, it has been a challenge, but I've definitely seen growth. I've seen them manage the time. I've seen them excel to be more advocates, to speak for themselves, as the young lady said. One of my girls, she was so ashamed one time when we were doing a pad drive to collect a sanitary napkin. Because she was about 13 or 14 and she collected a sanitary napkin and she hid it behind her back. And I said, why are you doing that? Once you're a girl, once you're born a female, you are more or less likely going to go through a menstrual cycle. He said, but we can't make nobody see. I said, why? They're gonna laugh. I said, no, you gotta stand up for that. That is your cycle. That is what we go through as women. And that's what gives us the right. And she wanted a black bag. I said, no black bag. So what was amazing is that she was in the presence of at least 30 other young girls. So why are you ashamed to even hold a standing napkin in their presence when we're all going through a stage of our lives, being young adults, being young women? So coming from at-risk communities, the challenges of their mental health, it really affects them because she wasn't brave enough to even hold a safety to stand up. But I can definitely see them bonding, and they bonded because they were girls a part of the Pagushi Club that are welders, which she didn't fall to the norm of becoming a cake, or she didn't fall into the kitchen, and she enjoys welding. And that was one of the first time she stood there in the presence of our colleagues and said, cooking is not her thing. She likes welding. And the girls, they started to giggle, and they said they're giggling because that's not a girl thing. But really and truly, what really makes it a girl thing?
Exactly.
We can't put those labels on our young people. We can't put a pressure on our young people that if she did not go into cooking, or if she's not a good cook, then she's not a good enough woman. So they're facing various challenges that are affecting their mental health. The stigma of the community definitely plays a role, and we need to be creative when we're implementing programs for our at-risk youth and reach out to them, talk with them, engage them, as Ms. Parvati said. You need to really listen so you can know what to implement and to ensure that it is impactful for the young people.
Ms. Parvati, can you just tell us a bit about what you do up there in Potentia through Potential Achievers, who is, I must say we are in partnership with all of the representatives on this panel here at ChildLinK. You know, we work to reach everyone wide and far. So, Ms. Parvati.
All right. I want to say, every child that is born, before I go to that, Chiquita, every child that is born need to experience the 3 A's. And it's affirmation, affection, and attention. When we see at-risk children coming, they needed double, triple, more times than we would give a normal child. Affirmation gives that child confidence. Attention makes that child feel loved and wanted. And affection is what is free, what we should give free to our children. In Potentia, I work in Potentia in the Bell West community and the Endeavor Commons area, Canal number 2. And dealing with teenagers, majority of these teenagers or the adolescent children are at risk. It has become such a challenge. In a normal class of 14 or 15, 9 or 10 are at risk, who are not coming from single parent family, are coming from sibling headed household families, who are not living with grandparents alone, maybe a grandmother who is on pension, many are not living in nuclear families. And so that puts a pressure. That is a pushing factor to become at risk. They go, when you get to work with them and you get to talk to them, then they release what is in there. And you have to be able to give guidance. You have to be able to give guidance in such a way that you build friendship, that the child feels that you really want to help and to listen. And so I want to say in these communities, we have more at-risk children than normal children, normal children. And so we have a lot of work to do, Shaquita.
Yes.
We have a lot of more work to do, and we have to pull as many people, especially role models, on board. We must be able to pull positive role models on board to save our children if we are going to be able to save at-risk youths.
Yes, and I want to mention that that's not just that issue. Those issues, rather, are not just limited to potential community. It is across Guyana, and it is across the world by extension, right? So let's not stigmatize that area, because in your own community, you might not know of these issues, but they are there. Danetta, what are some of the things, that you do to support these youths?
Okay, so some of the things that I do, and ChildLinK by extension does, is prevention work and intervention. So as a counselor and a sensitization officer and mentoring officer, there's intervention, as mentioned, and prevention. And so there's sensitization on different topics in the classroom. And these sensitization would go for 4 weeks, sometimes 5 weeks, right? Also, there is intervention, let's say in the case whereby a child would need psychosocial support. And so it's important that even though you would have done the preventative part in terms of sensitization, is now that you do the counseling, the one-on-one counseling with that child. And so I would have also done mentoring, not just only in the secondary school, but also at the juvenile holding center and different places. Sometimes your church will have somebody for you to mentor and things like that. And so with the mentoring also, we know it's a more closer relationship as opposed to the counseling. The mentoring is more closer in terms of there's accountability. And so it's like you're literally carrying that child on your shoulder. And so that child know that they're accountable to you, you're calling them. And so whenever there's a particular behavior that is being, let's say, expressed, they know, well, you know what? Miss Mendonça will know about it. So it's important that I come and I tell her. And so that is a very close knitted relationship. And so they see the affection, as Miss Parvati would have talked about. I love the 3 A's: affection, affirmation, and attention. And that's one of the reasons I think why is it they love the council so much, because we give them attention, we show them affection, and of course, we help them when it comes to affirmation, because it's important that they start to believe in themselves. And so once we give them that tools in terms of believing themselves, they're able to go forward despite of what their parents may say. When they see that constant in their life, and when I say constant, I'm talking about the counselor and the mentor officer. Even though we know mentoring is for a time and counseling for a time, that constant person that you're seeing for that short time, it's as though it works magic. It's as though they look forward to hear from you. They look forward to see from you. And so many times, sometimes parents, caregivers, they don't understand why is it my child is being so expressive and opening to this counselor? Why is it? But the thing about it, we give them the attention, the affection, and the affirmation. And so it's important that we do these things. I could remember one particular child while I was doing some work with him. I'm not going to disclose too much. We live in a very small world. And I said, I will remember you. I will pray for you. And he said, really? It's as though he was shocked. And it's as though he didn't expect me to say this. But he was like, really? Are you going to do this for me? I said, yes. Your well-being, your safety, your future is important to me. And this is why I will put you on my list in terms of praying for you, and it's your duty to be committed and do what is expected of you. So in going forward, Ms. Parvati, I think I will be putting your 3 A's probably on a list or something. I'm using it, but I just love the 3 A's, to reinforce it.
Thank you. Okay, so we have 8 more minutes. Yes, Ms. Barrows.
When she mentioned the child, Donetta, when she mentioned the child, that she worked with, it really made me reflect on some of the children that, I really displayed the 3 A's with. especially those boys coming out from the juvenile detention center. One was transferred to New Opportunity Corp study. And because I work in the field, I had to visit them. I could not have been in the area and not visit one of the boys that was transferred. And when I visit, he came to me running with open arms. He would have thought it was my child. He would have think I birthed him. He came to me running with open arms and he said, "Miss, I'm so happy to see you." He said, "Nobody comes to see me." And it's not the first time I would hear one of the boys say, no one comes to see them. You're in the detention center, you're being punished, but then they're just, we can't give up on them. We still need to check in, we still need to call. And the short time that I spent with him, he was all smiles, he was all happy. And of course, I went bearing gifts to encourage him, to still give him encouraging words to motivate him and let him know that not because the location has changed, it means that he is forgotten. I remembered him and all of the young people I work with, I remember them. And whenever I'm in community or I see the parent or any opportunity that I get, we try to communicate, we try to check in.
Yeah.
If I may add, it goes to show, building on what Ms. Barrow would have said, it goes to show that our boys need affection. And it's so sad that our society doesn't see it that way in terms of, okay, a boy mustn't cry, but they have emotion just like us. And likewise, just as that's what Ms. Barrow would have been saying just.
Excuse me, Shikuti, sorry to interrupt. I have a question. Can you please answer? Can you excuse me for a moment?
Yeah, sure, no problem. Sorry. Yes, I'm the next, sorry.
Yes, and I could have remembered that when we had that particular session that day, it's as though when I was leaving, he had wanted to cry. And so I said, you know what, I will be back. And these boys, they really need our attention. And so it's important that society doesn't write them off. I know some of their parents and caregivers would have, and some persons might say, how do you know that their parents and caregivers would have write them off or give them the death sentence? I would know because these children would tell you this is what my parents said to me. And so they would have given up on these children. It's important that we do not give up on these children. And so it's also important that we even prepare society for when these children are out, because they're not going to be there forever. It's important that we prepare society for these children to accept them, knowing that they would have already do their time. And so it's important that in going forward, we do that as a society and not to write them off, because prison itself is punishment. They do not need that when they come out.
Okay, thank you for that. So Tanesi, I'm going to ask you quickly. We have 5 minutes remaining, but I'm going to ask you real quick. What are some things as an adolescent and a young woman? What are some things that families or parents can do to support these young people who are at risk? That you've been hearing us talk about at-risk youths and ones that. What are some of the things that families can do to support them?
Well, from my perspective, I think that families can try to bond more with each other, like, talk, have these little family get-togethers with each other. If it's not twice a week, one time a week or so, bond together. Just try to, cooperate with each other. Let out, see if you can, talk about things, that are happening to you. And see if your parents or any family member can help you.
Yeah, it's important that parents bond and find time for their children, show love. Like Ms. Parvati rightfully said, Ms. Parvati, you said the 3 words, the 3 A's: affirmation, affection, and attention, right? So that is very important. I'm gonna ask my other panel members to briefly just tell us what are some of the things that families can do. I mean, you guys would have mentioned some just now, but what are some other things that families can do to support these children, to prevent them from going into institutions or becoming, or not developing into their full potentials? I can start with Ms. Parvati.
Right. I want to say, families need to validate their children from a very early age. Family members, neighbors, friends, community members need to validate children. If you're spotting a child that is heading out to become an at-risk child, you as an adult, it's your bounden duty to intervene with a positive mindset, to be a good role model. If you don't have the skills that it will take to counsel and do intervention, be a good role model to that child and seek help for that child. Family members can do that, neighbors, friends, any other adult, teacher, preacher, pastor, anybody. You see these signs. You see the signs within the youths, within the children. It's your duty to intervene and be of positive help to that child. Thanks.
Ms. Barrow?
Now, there are several things parents and caregivers can do, but what I would like to reinforce, as Tanisha said, is communicate, open communication, and to do so without judgment, but not talking to a child, but talking with your child. So when the child shares something with you, just really listen. Allow yourself to process those words before you respond, or you can even respond at some other time, depending on what it is the child is saying or whatever the child is asking. Let's say, for instance, the child makes a comment about sex. You know, we don't want to bash it right away, when really you can use an opportunity to give safe sex education to that child, especially if the child is of age, within the legal age of consenting time is 16. So if the child is of age and they come to ask you something sexual or they make a comment about sex, give an opening here, communicate with that child. If it's drugs, you talk to the child about the effects of drugs. And what parents fail to realize is that their own experience is a great testimony to a child. If you were in a similar situation, you can share with your child, John, when I was at your age, give them a realistic example, it occurred to you. I had the option to, and I tried it and it wasn't nice, and this was the result. Or I did it several times and this was the result. These are my options, because some children may feel if they're involved in certain activities, they won't come out bad, but it can go several ways. And I also want to encourage parents not only to communicate, but to check in with your children. If you are preoccupied at work, and if you're working and you have other children, you have a large family, you're attending university, you're trying to enhance your education, check in with them, because you're preoccupied. Check in to find out what they're doing, how they're doing at schools, check in with the school, call the parents, check in with the neighbor. It doesn't take a lot of time, because we find time to be on things, for instance, like social media. So we can use that same time to pay a little bit more interest in the activities of our child. Because if we're not aware of what our child is doing, we for sure continue, not my child would never do that. But then you really don't know what our child has been doing, because you have been so preoccupied, you really have not checked in. And lastly, I would like to say, look for warning signs. Children display deviant behaviors. They may withdraw. They may start to stay out late. They may have a different group that they're hanging with. We need to look for all these signs and that we can say this is occurring, or you can talk to the child about it. But you need to be vigilant, keep your eye on it, and communicate. You need to communicate with your child, because if you're seeing something that it looks as though a child is having sex or the child has been abused, you need to look for the warning signs of what is it that is occurring for the child.
Janetta?
Okay, they say great minds think alike. Some of Miss Barrow, some of pique my brain. And so there are several things that parents and caregivers can do. And so one of the things is showing love, showing support for that child. Let that child know that you are there for that child. Let that child know that you are their biggest cheerleader. and you cheering them on. Another thing too that is very important, I think Miss Barrow touched on it a bit. I didn't get to hear too much because the internet was on and off. And one of the things that parents need to remember sometimes that they are once a child. And it's good sometimes if there's a particular behavior that is being exhibited by a child, it's important that you call a child and say, you know what? I chose that road once, and this was the result. And it's good for you to identify with that child. It is good for you to identify with your children so that your children will know what my mom, my dad would have been through this. Too often times we find that parents sometimes operate as, you know what, I've never done this, I've never done that. And so it's important that we need to remove from that in terms that you would have never done this, you never done that. You probably wouldn't have done the thing that they would have done. But still, you know, you were once a teen, you would have commit certain behavior, did some things that your parents wasn't proud of. But it's important that you let your children know that you weren't the perfect child also. And so it's important once these children see that, they will say, you know what, I can talk to mommy. Mommy told me this, she did this, and this is what happened. Daddy told me this thing, this particular behavior is bad. And so one of the things I would always do or always say is for parents to be a role model to your children. You are the first teacher. You're the first teacher that your children sees. And so it's important that you model good and you model correct behavior. And it's important also that the affirmation comes in. I'm stealing Miss Parvati A, the affirmation, the affection, and the attention. Our children need our attention. The counselors give them the attention, the counselors give them the affection, and the counselors help them with self-affirmation. And so it's important now that you as parents and caregivers give those things to your children.
Yeah. Stealing is bad and it's better you borrow it. It's better to borrow it. Right? So we don't want that. Okay, so I would like a message from the young people. For the young people, like rather. So I'm going to ask Ms. Parvati, Ms. Barrows, and Ms. Mendonza to think of one sentence quickly while I'm speaking to Tanisha. What would you like to say to a young person looking at this? One sentence I'm giving you. This is your little challenge, right? They're not enough put you on the spot. It's a challenge, right? So for you, Tanisha, what would you say to any young man or woman who might come across this program and listen to, who might be at risk, you know, and feeling down and out and confused? What would you say to him or her?
I would say try to stay positive and think about the good things that can happen in your life. Don't just be hooked on the bad things that have happened to you. Like, there's always going to be a turn of events, and those turn of events can be very, very good things. And, you know, just try to stay positive and have faith in life, you know, and you can use those bad things that happen to you as, you know, your motivation you know, build yourself, and it can be your way of showing people that no matter what happens, there's always going to be something good out of it.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, so Miss Parvati, you look ready. What is your sentence?
Yes. My sentence to the at-risk youths out there is that help is available.
Mm-hmm.
Help is available. Just talk to the right person, admit that you need help, and help is available. A little longish sentence.
When you said help is available, was that a comma there or a full stop?
It was a comma.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Barrow.
I would like our young people to know that you define yourself. And I say this again, you define yourself. Your mother does not define you. Your community does not define you. The friends do not define you. You define yourself. So use every opportunity you can to rise above any glass ceiling, to break it, to excel, set your own boundaries, and define yourself in a way that you know will be good for your mental health, well-being, and will fill you with peace and joy.
Ms. Mendonza?
Okay, so not only is it hard for me to come up with a sentence, but Ms. Barrow would have just mentioned some of the things I would have wanted to say. And so I'm
I
going to
don't know
try
why
to
it's
make it.
happening.
I don't know, probably because we're working together.
Could be.
Nevertheless, young people, your situation does not define you. It's important that you believe in yourself. And at the same time, as Miss Parvati would have said, help is on the way. Connect or surround yourself with the right persons, the right resources who will help you pass that bridge, because your season, this particular season that you're in, is just for time and it will pass. So just know that this is not your stop. The holding center is not your stop. Institutionalization care is not your stop. And so it's important that you know that your situation does not define you. And as people would say, the sky is the limit. Do not limit yourself.
Yes. Thank you for that paragraph, Miss Mendonza. That was great. Oh, thank you, ladies, so much for sharing, And I would like to say to parents that despite of the circumstances, despite of the environment, learn your children, understand their love language, because everyone feel loved different in different ways, and it might not be buying them things or so, but try to do the little things to show them that you love them, you care, you support them. It is not expensive to look at your daughter and say you're beautiful, or you're smart, or you speak so well, or I see you going so far. Those are the little things that matter to children and to the family members and to the young people. There's this song that I listen to by India Ari. It's I Am Light. It says, I am light. I'm not the things my family did. I'm not the voices in my head. I'm not the pieces of the brokenness inside. I am light. And that's a song that I listen to for affirmation when I need to feel, love or reminded, and there are different avenues. You don't have to do bad things to get your voice heard. You don't have to cope or deal with this, like Miss Parvati said, alone. You can reach out. We have Danetta, we have ChildLinK, we have CPA, we have Potential Achiever, we have Miss Barrows, persons, women, we have the youth advocate mentors who are youth advocates, who are willing to open up, who are willing to listen and render assistance to you. You are not in this alone. Use your situation, try to see the light in it, like Tanisha said, and try to turn it around for the better. It's not easy. It's easier said than done, but try your best. And I would like to share this quickly with you, and I'm talking a lot, but I'd like to share this quickly with you. When you feel like you don't have an avenue, like you can't speak to your parents, to say, Mommy, I'm hurt, I used to try a thing. I used to write a lot of letters to my mother. You can ask about them. A lot of letters. If I feel like I can't look her in her face and say something, I would send her a text message. Mind you, I got the phone when I was in Form 5, my first cell phone. So I would send her a little text message saying, Mommy, I'm a bit confused. I'm sorry if I was a bit rude earlier, but I'm hurt and this is what's happening to me and what's not. So try to find the best way out of your situation, and the sky is the limit. Some would say, like the net to say, but for me, there are persons who would have walked on the moon. So get there. Try to get to the moon. So it's not impossible, no matter where you're from, no matter the color of your skin, no matter your class, your social class, where you're placed, whether you're not, whether you're rich, whether you're middle class, or whether you are poor. That should not, and it does not define you. You are light. So with that being said, thank you, ladies, so much for joining me today. I had so much fun talking to you. Thank you for sharing your experiences and your insight. Thank you to Nacia for being here. You came last minute. You came on last minute. I reached out last minute, and you made it, and you made it happen for us. So once again, ladies, thank you so much for staying tuned. Thank you to the persons who listened. Mr. Prasad, I saw you there in the comments. You kept commenting and you kept sharing positive messages. Thank you for tuning in again. And remember, this program was brought to you under ChildLinK's Recovery Safeguarding Reintegration Initiative, which is funded by the delegation of the European Union. Until next time, I'm Shaquita Thomas. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.